I'm Sean Kennedy. Am I talking to the camera or the room? I don't know what to talk to. I'm Sean. I do visual effects. I work at a small studio called Cosa Visual Effects. We do a lot of TV. Every once in a while they get a feature, but they tend to try and stay away from all that and just do TV. You have a nicer slide than I brought. I have no slides. I have just a folder of images and videos. Yeah, I'm mainly a compositor. Like I said, I do, I work in Nuke mostly. And because I am a big Blender user and I've used Blender on a lot of freelance things, features and stuff. I like to bring that work into what I'm doing with compositing. I like to, little things that don't require the entire 3D team to come on board and involve 3 supervisors and approval processes and all that. Little things, I like to just do that. So, okay, so I brought in some TV stuff. No fancy slides. A while back, I was working with a friend of mine on a close friend of mine was hired as the supervisor on a Disney TV show. This was one of the fun things. There was a lot of fun things. It was really low budget. They needed things turned around really fast. So everything was kind of but it was good for kids. So we did a lot of quick and dirty things. And there was one time I had to make an eye and a hand. Hopefully all this plays right. Yeah. So nothing fancy. They had a prosthetic on set and stuff, but it didn't move obviously. So I just whipped up that in half a day or something. It was nothing fancy, but screenshots of just just the really basic simple setup. This thing doesn't wait there. Yeah, nothing fancy at all. So yeah, weird mouse too. So yeah, you can see this show I think has since been canceled. So but I did use Blender a lot on this show for little things like that. Again, nothing fancy, nothing hard, just something that ended up out there. I currently work at this place called Cosa, like I said, and I use it there a lot, at least once a week or so. A lot of things like small particle stuff. But last year pilot season, we had a shot, which I believe I have here somewhere, the weapon, right? Yeah, this is it. Is it not going to play smooth? Anyway, this car had this was for the Lethal Weapon. I think their first season just ended now, and I use Blender a lot on that for little things like this. For this shot, if I let it play a little further, it's kind of jumping around. It's not really playing, but here you go. You can see that the stunt car had a big plexiglass thing on the window, and there was a big double-sided tape thing around it, cutting into the car, all that kind of stuff. And we had a whole bunch of these shots, and for most of them, we could just darken that down. It was moving really fast, motion blurred, wrecking. So we would just roll to the window and darken it down. But this one had a whole bunch of like weird reflections and all kinds of things, and we see it for a long time, and it's in slow motion, and you couldn't just darken it. So I actually, I went on to, and this needed to be done in like half a day or something, some ridiculously fast turnaround. So I went on to Blend Swap, and I got a Mustang model, and I had somewhere I had like a rigged human model that I just, I actually took the actor from another shot, I took the face map from the model I had and just kind of cloned over the actor's face from another shot and kind of stretched it around and tried to make it work. And I deleted every part of the car I didn't need. I hand match moved this. I didn't track anything. I just eyed it in there, just concentrating on just the window frame. And then I animated the guy just kind of bouncing around a little bit. I think, why don't this play? It's a bummer. At work, they were perplexed. They thought I was just going to darken it. And then I ended up with a whole interior and everything moving and him bouncing and the actor and everything. So that was kind of eye-opening for them. A few of them came to my desk and like, "Why did you do that? What are you using? What's going on?" So that got the blender ball rolling at COSA a little bit. So now I'm teaching classes. But it worked really good. And again, like I said, that's the model itself, the car model, the only parts that remain from the actual model are a thin line around here, around the outside of the window in the interior. So I didn't really use that much of it, but it turned out really good. I wish it would play nice and smoothly, but oh well. But anyway, that was one of the early things I did. That was last year, and that just finished their first season. Let's see what this is. Oh, smoke. I do a lot of smoke stuff at work as well. Sorry I'm not more organized. I should have had a nice slideshow thing. When you need, we use a lot of smoke elements. We have a whole library. But of course, after a few months of digging through that library, you end up with the same your favorite 5 smoke things. You end up throwing in everything, and then sometimes you have something like this where smoke needs to be coming from somewhere and lit a certain way, and it's just too much effort to try and make a whole bunch of stock elements work for that. And Blender's spectacular for this kind of thing. I didn't really match the angle of the shot. I just kind of really roughed it in. I made up the minimal geometry necessary to get what I needed and lit it, rendered it, had smoke in under an hour. So that's the kind of stuff I end up doing with it at work. What else do I have? I have a lethal weapon, maybe. Yeah, I did there was a car. I wish I had a before shot of this, but I don't. A car explodes, flips, and rolls down the street. And where the gas tank was, they had put a big giant piston that helped flip it, and then all this smoke is pouring out of it. And they liked the smoke. They kind of wanted to keep that and amp it up a bit. But because it's moving completely, they didn't know, can we just clone patches over, and how are we going to patch that? But of course, it's super easy. Just make a little gas tank, texture it really nice. And then once I had it hand tracked in, I could easily run smoke for it as well. So all that went really smoothly and really nicely. What else do I have? The arrow keys don't work with this new thing. Here's another shot of it. I think this is a rendered shot of it. All right. Yeah, that's what it ended up looking. I think I ended up wrapping it in a little bit more fire and more smoke and stuff, but that was an early slapping it in there. So what else? Let's see. What else do I have? I have we also do a show called we did Training Day. That was something. I only have one shot from that, but a guy needed a gunshot on the head, and we had the element of it splatting out, but it needed to. There also needed to be like a thing on his head, like an actual wound that wrapped around his head as he's flying through this gun battle and perspective changing and all that. So again, I just rather than mess around in Nuke projecting on geometry and all that kind of stuff, Blender's so much easier and faster. So I just opened it up, made a face, tracked it onto his face, and then I can just put whatever I want on there, render it out as its own little thing, and just comp it over in Nuke. What else do I have? There's a show called Pitch we worked on, like a baseball show about the first female pitcher. I have no idea how it's doing in the ratings, but we had this monster shot. Yeah, here you can see this car. This was a long shot, and there's this camera rig in it, right? In this car, the camera's stationary at first. The car pulls in, comes to a stop, and then the camera move starts, and it ends up way up above. So they gave this to me, and they gave me like a week, and just said, just remove the camera from everything. And the tracking department tracked it for me, so that was nice. And I used so many different techniques, but when it was all said and done, I did need to put a reflection back into the car. And that's where I just kind of quickly modeled this door, the whole side of the car. It's nothing fancy. I'm sure it's not, if you pulled this model out and actually lined it up to a real correct car, it's probably not right, but it matches what's happening in the shot. I just made that, there we go. So yeah, this kind of thing gave me the reflection I needed. Just throwing an HDRI in, making this glossy black, looked exactly like the car. I did little things like put little, like a little displacement map to get the little, it's never as perfectly smooth. It's the little bumps, the metal and the dents and things like that. And then they, of course, once they started seeing it, then they're like, oh, we need a crowd in there too. And can we put this TV truck? So I would just stick things on cards, footage of a crowd, and just stick it on the other side of the camera and put the little, the camera crew truck in there as well. And it ended up working extremely well. I would just render out all these passes and just slap things together in Nuke, and it worked great. I think that's all for that one, right? Oh, cancel. I broke it. No, that's all right. I think that's all I had for that anyway. So that's that was Pitch. What else do I have? I have there's a show airing now called Star, and I think I've never watched it. I've not watched the show. It's a spinoff from this show called Empire, and it's the same guy that does both of them. His name's Lee Daniels, and it's about a girl group, like 3 girls down on their luck trying to make it big. And at one point they came to me, they needed a transition. He described it like poking a paper through a pencil, or poking a pencil through a paper, and the paper just starts to tear away. And they wanted that to be like these transitions of that going into the girls' fantasy world. And of course they needed it quick. If they didn't need it quick, they would have went to our 3D department, who would have spent weeks on it. But instead they said, can you do this in half a day? So I came up with something. Hopefully this plays nice and smooth. Yeah, this is working. There you go. So there you go. You can see it. I think this is like a little breakdown too, right? Yeah. So it's just there's a great little tool for Blender called Cloth FX, which does ripping cloth so easily. Is that what you used on your thing as well? Yeah. It's got some limitations, but for something like this, it's perfect. I was able to just crank it out really quick, and there's a funny little thing about the it's defocused when the tearing starts. It kind of gets. Can I scroll in this? Yeah. So there's this nice, all this nice. I don't know how to say it. Bokeh. I don't know how people pronounce it, but there's these nice. The way it defocuses is really nice, and they love that. And my first pass I rendered with really low samples just as a test, get it out. So everything was really grainy. So these super brights that are along the edge, when I defocused it in comp, they got all, defocused really nice. You could see the aperture shape and stuff. But that was really just from me rendering it at such a low sample rate. So the next pass, when they said, yeah, we love the look, keep going. So I turned up the samples, rendered it, and all this bokeh went away. And they actually asked for it back. So I had to set my samples back down to something ridiculously low just to get it really grainy. And I think I have some screenshots of that somewhere. Oh, maybe I didn't bring any screenshots, just the video. But yeah, that's now I'm like I'm trying to set up a system that, because I'm the only guy in the building that can do that now, because I'm the only one there using Blender. They want me to be able to make that so I can pass it around to other artists. So I'm setting up a thing where using the, I don't know what you would call it. In Nuke, it's a ST map. It's where you can render out a gradient. Yeah. You can kind of remap anything you want in comp later. So I'm trying to set that up where I can hand that kind of thing off to other people. And then what else do I have? I have, these are Lethal Weapon screenshots, right? We went over those things. I've got some stuff from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. Let me see if I can figure this. This is the final shot. This is going to go by really quick, probably. These are really short. But this is Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, come on. Well, this isn't. But did I break everything? Yeah. Oh, bummer. That's all I have is videos of those. Like breakdown video. Wow. Did I break that?
Oh, no. We are. No, you're still broadcasting live. You're also getting tech support on YouTube. There's a lot of Windows hype right now. A lot of people making fun of Windows.
Okay, so we can kind of step through, I guess. First frame, and trim off that thing. Yeah. All right. So anyway, this guy, this mask he's holding, a villain like charges it with energy or something, and then things end up exploding. And I did the same kind of thing with this, where I just quickly modeled. They needed things, particles kind of swirling around. There's two of these shots, but by the end, there's like things swirling around it. And what I did was just quickly modeled that mask, hand animated it, match moved it, and then I could texture anything I want on there, render it out, and use those passes in comp. It's a lot of loading just for that quick little explanation. But
what did you use for the particles? You rendered something out and then
for the particles, I did that in Blender as well and just rendered out. Yeah, I think most for this thing, it was mostly just black and white. I would just make everything black, make particles white. Yeah, and then do the coloration and all that stuff in Nuke. And I think there were 2 or 3 passes of swirling things. In the next shot, it gets a little bit more intense and then explodes. So yeah, it was nothing complex, easy, fast. Some other people were trying to, create cylinders and things in Nuke and quickly texture things, and then you get all kinds of weird geometry issues not lining up. Yeah. So this ended up working a lot better. So I ended up with a lot of these shots. And I have a breakdown video. We can try and see if it'll load as well in here. It just shows like the wireframe kind of, yeah, things are running slow. I guess there's a lot running on here, right? But you can see there the basic, real crappy geometry I made. Just to kind of, it was really hard to see what that thing's doing, so I got it as close as I could quickly. Yeah, it does. So that's it. That's the kind of thing I was doing on this kind of shot. Maybe go a little forward. Yeah, there you go. You can see some of the passes, what they look like. That's all of them combined. And some of the color and some of the glow stuff, all that junk. And the explosion. So yeah, so that's the kind of thing I'm doing there. Should I leave Blender open still? No? Yeah, maybe. What else do I think there's a screenshot as well of my little setup. My absolutely disastrous setup. Just nothing fancy at all. Just gets the job done, really. So yeah, I guess that's it. I can also drive more time. I guess I could show some other things if they'll play as well. I did a feature. I was at Rhythm and Hues for a while, and then when that whole thing went under, I worked from home for a couple years, mainly doing a feature the whole time. Just an independent thing, small thing, and I used Blender as the main program on that. And I did actually a lot of compositing in Blender on that. I was trying to really put Blender through the paces as a Nuke replacement. And I did end up using, I also use After Effects a lot on it actually, but I tried to keep everything in Blender as much as I could. And it actually worked really well. Just some screenshots of things. They bought some stock footage of an alien ship or something and asked me to replace it with their alien ship. So I did that. You can see kind of the rough compositing set up there. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, so the details aren't worth getting into probably, but there's a mothership behind some stock footage of Moscow. But you can see Blender works great as a feature compositor.
Is this a 3 artist magazine?
Some of the issues might have, or some of these images might have turned up once or twice.
Because I think I saw this in the 3 artist magazine.
Yeah, it might have. A couple interviews they asked for pictures to send along, and I grabbed things. This shot was fun. This is how it was shot, the green screen, and then I created a background for it to match. They bought this stock footage, so I was kind of trying to match. Like, okay, so I got to make this fit that. So trying to dial all that in, but it worked great. Yeah, I know. I think originally they asked us to do it, but my friend who was the supervisor who did all the bidding, he was like, no, we don't have time for that. I'll bid it super high. And
Preserve continuity in the sci-fi universe.
Yeah. So that worked. Yeah, that worked really good. Anyway, I've just looks like none of these may play either. But I've got a whole bunch of just putting spaceships in this scene. I did all the tracking in Blender, and nothing's gonna play for me. That's all right. Yeah, these are all tiny too. These are all like little half-resi things. Yeah, this was all shot in the valley, I think. It's about a guy, this guy who he all says it's real, in the 70s, had an alien encounter, and ever since has been channeling aliens, and he goes around channeling aliens. People pay to come and listen to the alien. So he made a documentary about that whole thing, so I got to make all aliens. A lot of fun space stuff, things like that is not moving at all. Lordy. Yeah, I wish I had. Wish these were playing.
Was that a stock Earth, or was that something that you put together?
It was a stock map from somewhere, but I think I put it together. This was a stock shot Paris they bought that they wanted the mothership in. It's supposed to be like time lapse, so it's supposed to be whatever 5 miles behind the Eiffel Tower or something. And there's a great modeler named Dan Brown, only does spaceships and stuff. And I was modeling a bunch of other things, a whale and some other ships and stuff. And we brought him on to do that one. And he did a spectacular job with that thing. There's another shot of it. And I would want to dirty things up. I would tell the guy it should look real and dirty and gritty, and he just wanted everything clean and crisp and perfect. And so we were battling after a few months that were just whatever. He's going to want to see everything clean. So it was always a battle between trying to make it look real, but then he didn't want it to look real. So it was fine. It was, yeah. We did a character actually, and he just wanted the skin white. And I'm like, you have to have red and pores and texture, some kind of texture. And he just insisted on white. I finally got a little bit of red in the lips and around the eyes, and that was it. And, I struggled, but whatever. The client's always right. I'm just the hired gun. So, a lot of shots of this kind of stuff. I wish just one would play. This was a good one too. Anyway, I guess that's, I don't know if that's a half an hour or not, but I guess I'm probably wrapping up anyway. But things like, fun place. Right on. So, things like that. This shot was interesting. I kept getting, no matter what I did with rendering, I kept getting sampling problems at the back of that spaceship, the big one. No matter how high I turned them up, anything I did, nothing would fix it. So I ended up, I went to lunch and I let it render. I just set the samples to 0, went to lunch, came back, it was on whatever, 2000 or something. It was nice, clean pass of frame 1. And I saved that. Then I just made a little tiny patch of geometry, projected it, or whatever, shrink wrapped it onto the actual model, projected that first frame onto that, and then just rendered that out with the old regular internal render, and then just made a little patch, and then fixed all the jittery. I ended up using the animal. Okay,
I think what I'm going to do
then I'm done.
Is, apologies.
Yeah, please.
Apologies.
Yay.
Yay.